Dobar dan. That means good day. Talkcast PDX. You can find us on the web, talkcastpdx.com. It's Tuesday, July 6th, 2021. Name of the show is The Bogdanich Perspective. I'm your host, Paul Bogdanich, and welcome. Title of today's show is Mischaracterization. I read a bunch of press, and I think I'm going to go with that theme. Start with the news that isn't segment of the show, just a news item that doesn't mean anything to anybody. Russians launched a new boat. Difference in between a ship and a boat is a ship is large enough to carry a boat, but when they first came up with submarines, they started calling them boats, and it's never changed. But the Russians launched a new submarine, big one, 600 feet long, 50 foot wide. Its main armament are things called Poseidon drones, which are not torpedoes, they're drones. They're like about 6-7 feet in diameter and about 40 foot long. With the proper weapon, one could destroy the east coast of the United States or a carrier battle group, something like that. They asked a general about that, and the general said, well, they can do that already, so it doesn't change the balance of forces and all that. But that's not the news. They, when you name a ship, the first of its class, are attack submarines. The first ship in the class was called the Los Angeles, so they're referred to as the Los Angeles class submarine. Our first ballistic missile submarine is called Ohio, so that's the Ohio class. But this is the first of this class in this ship, and they named it Belgorod, which caused quite a stir amongst people who were whatever you would call it, familiar with military history. Belgorod is a small town in Russia, no strategic or military importance. It sits at 50.6 degrees north, 36.6 east, 20 miles inside Russia from the Ukrainian border. Its only significance is it's on the road that goes from Karachev, Ukraine, to Moscow. And as such, it's been part of the invasion routes. Anytime anybody invades Russia, they go through there. But when the Germans invaded, I talked about that last week because it was the 80th year anniversary. Barbarossa, largest land invasion in the history of the world, went on June 22nd, and the Germans took Belgorod in October 25th, 1941. And they held it until February 9th, 1943, and then the Russians retook it. And then as the Germans were building up for the Battle of Kursk, which was the largest battle in the history of the world, by the way, they retook it again. Russians, after the 50 days of fighting at Kursk, liberated it for the final time. But of the 34,000 original inhabitants of Belgorod, only 150 survived. Or the rest were refugees, conscripts, or dead. And that's it's naming it's an odd name. It's an ominous name, for a submarine. Let's put it that way. Other thing in the news, you may have read this. Showed up in all the major papers. Scanned the headline, maybe read the article, but the Chinese decided to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Communist Party. It's the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Communist Party. The Communist Party did not come to power in China until 1949. So the 100th anniversary of the CCP, Chinese Communist Party, in power would be 2049. But this is a good opportunity, and Xi won't be president in 2049, so he took the opportunity to stage a big celebration, make a big national speech. If you read about it in our press, they did the sound bites, the aggressive sound bites. They quoted him as saying, and this is one translation, unless you speak Mandarin, you can't tell. But they said, the Chinese people will never again allow any foreign force to bully, oppress, or enslave us. Yay, big cheer from the crowd, that kind of thing. Hour-long speech, 40 minutes of it was devoted to the economy and the well-being of the Chinese citizens, what they're going to do going forward. He reiterated things like houses are for living, not for speculating, stuff like that. He called China a moderately prosperous society and said that under, the CCP's continuing leadership, they were going to do better than that. He made a jibe at Secretary Bilkin and President Biden The quote that I read, it depends on the translation you read, but roughly, the Communist Party and the Chinese people welcome all helpful suggestions and constructive criticism, but we won't accept sanctimonious lectures from stealth-styled preachers, unquote. And like I said, if you read the American press on it, they convey the impression that he is bellicose and aggressive. What the speech is China has if you're in a ruling system like that, you have to have what's called a princip, or a first principle. I'm the head of the Chinese Communist Party. Why should I be in charge? What are we doing here? And the Chinese princip is power, prosperity, and respect. Okay, that's the agenda of the Chinese Communist Party. And this speech was to remind everybody in the nation that the objective of the party and the objective of the citizenry, as you said, 1.4 billion Chinese people acting as a single unit, it's a rallying speech that spent 40% of, maybe 60% of its time on economic matters. And he preached the party line, which is power, prosperity, and respect. That's what we're doing. That's the program. I'm the leader. That's what we're going to do. You, as good Chinese citizens, get behind the program and let's do this. And that's what the speech was about. But in the Western media, it's characterized as anything but that. The economic confrontation, this, that, and everything else. But it was just he reiterated what they're doing, what their plan is, in broad strokes. I mentioned that. I talked a while ago about liberal democracy, our system. And liberal democracy is the idea that people, individuals, forming free associations with other people are the movers in society. And when you have what's called modus vivendi liberalism, which is how the Constitution was founded, how it was written, and how we operated until probably 1950 or so, the only function of the government was to arbitrate, mitigate, negotiate disputes in between groups of citizens who couldn't agree on first principles. That's what the government's job was limited to. And that's called modus vivendi liberalism. Since then, we've switched to what's called progressive liberalism, which is where the government tells you what your first principles should be. And that's a very recent development, and it's getting much worse in the last 2, 3, 5 years. I mean, they'll tell you what your first principles should be. It didn't used to be like that. But if you look at why do the Chinese and the Russians and the Brazilians and the Chileans and all these people disagree with us fundamentally in terms of our system? And what is it? And liberalism is the idea that the individual is prime, the first mover. All these other systems, in particular the Chinese and the Russians, think that the individual's first obligation is their position and responsibility in society, and that the individual as the individual comes second. You have to be a member of society first and an individual second. And to do that, to run a system like that, you have to have a ruling princip, right? And I think, anyway, that's what this speech was about. You'll never hear it because they don't like talking about it. We do not have a ruling princip, obviously. I would think, in my personal opinion, and this is just my personal opinion, there are many rational reasons to be violently opposed, not violently, but sternly, strongly opposed to some of President Trump's actions as president, and logical reasons. But there's an illogical hatred of him. And I think a good part of that is because he was perceived at proposing a principle, America first, a principle. We don't do that, communist, and so on. And I think that that's responsible for a lot of the hatred. I think he is good at slogans, but not good at thinking. And so he didn't define it, and he let the media define it for him, and they defined it. That means white supremacy. That means this. That means that. And to him, it was probably just a slogan. But the point is, if you're a Russian or if you're one of these other people, you operate under a principle. You are a member of society first and an individual second, and very big difference in between they and we. If they talk about us, when you ask them what they think of that, Xi of China, his actual name is pronounced Shishi or something like that. Chinese is very intonational, but it doesn't translate well, so we Americanized it to Xi. But if you ask him what they think, and he doesn't talk about it often, last time he did talk about it was 9 months, a year ago. And basically what he said is that America is a society in terminal decline. Now, he did not use the word nation in terminal decline, empire in terminal decline, system in terminal decline. He didn't say that. He said society in terminal decline. Mr. Putin speaks English, is a more nuanced communicator in our language than is the Chinese president. And about a month ago, he was giving a speech and he threw in there, the problem of empires is that they think they are so powerful that they can afford small inaccuracies and mistakes. But problems keep piling up, and past some point, they are no longer to cope with them. And the United States is now walking the Soviet Union's path, and its gait is confident and steady. So if you ever want to think about the difference in between they and we, that's it. Use principles. Speaking of principles, Thomas Jefferson once said, no man can by natural right oblige the lands he occupied or the persons who succeed him in that occupation to the payment of debts contracted by him. For if he could, he might during his own life eat up the usufruct of the lands, useful purpose of the lands, for several generations to come, and then the lands would belong to the dead and not the living, which would be the reverse of our principle, which is interesting. We used to have historically principles. Anyway, if we move on to another mischaracterization, the employment report, came out. If you read the press, I reprinted some of them here. The S&P 500 and the NASDAQ hit record highs on Friday as strong monthly payrolls data bolstered confidence in the labor market. The wage growth, blah, 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 and so on. And they tried to, play it up. You'll notice in that headline, the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ hit record highs. And then the employment data was second. If you actually look at they were pretty good about it, I suppose. There's two headline numbers in the report. One is how many jobs were created, and the other is the unemployment rate. Most media sources did mention that the unemployment rate went up. Even though 580,000 jobs were created. I'm one of these crazy people that actually prints the report and reads the report. It's a great report. It's not as accurate as what they call the definitive report on employment is what's called the JOLTS, Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey, but that's compiled from actual payroll data instead of survey data, so it comes out 3 months late. We won't have that report for 3 months, but that's the authoritative report. This is like the preliminary report. But I actually got it, and going through it, I printed out some of the tables. Civilian non-institutional population in the United States, 261,338,000 people. The labor force is 161,086,000 people. Number of employed individuals is 151,602,000, which is a 61.6, what they call participation rate, which is steady. It's been at that forever. That's historically moderate to low. Unemployment rate ticked up from 5.8 to 5.9%. In terms of demographics, basically the unemployment numbers are, call it 6%, with the exception of teenagers who are 10%. Black or African Americans, 9.2%. Asians, 5.8%. Hispanic or Latino, 7.4%. Just, a bunch of interesting statistics. Don't have time to read them all, but go through some of them, I guess. They classify things by job losses. Total non-farm payroll up 850,000. Private payrolls responsible for 662,000 of that. Big winners, private service providing, which gets broken down. And it basically turns out to be hospitality, what they call leisure and hospitality, people that work in hotels, people that work in restaurants, and so on. I printed some summary statistics here. What did I say? Yeah, 850,000 jobs created, 343,000 were leisure and hospitality, 155,000 were teachers or school-associated workers, and 67,000 were checkers or clerks in the retail trade. So if you add those three categories together, that's 565,000 of the 850,000 jobs created, which is almost exactly 2/3, of the total number. And the problem with that is virtually none of them are what's referred to as a saving wage job. And that's the way Obama ran the country for 8 years, 2% growth rate. You get a job as a waiter anytime, but try and find a better one. So we'll see how long that persists. Among the more interesting things, average weekly hours worked fell from 34.8 to 34.7. Average hourly earnings increased from $30.30 to $30.40. And if you do the math on that, the average weekly earnings was constant, $1,054.44 versus $1,054.88, against an 11% increase in the cost of shelter and a 5% increase in the cost of food and gasoline and everything else. But so stagnant wages. Mining and logging, let's see, what else do we have here? Where's the unemployed? If you look in a broader context and you want to know establishment data, table A2. Where's table A2? There's B1. But they keep a list of how many workers you need to employ in each sector to get back to pre-pandemic employment history. And that's what I'm looking for here. I should have marked it. Anyway, I don't immediately, it looks as if, anyway, in the retail, by memory, because I can't, B1, where the hell is table A2? I know I printed it. Oh, well. But anyway, there's millions. Here it is. All right, last page. Construction, 730,000 are still below employment. Manufacturing, 792,000 are still unemployed that shouldn't be, in other words. Durable goods, 553,000. Non-durable goods, 259,000. Wholesale and retail trade, 1.2 million. Transportation and utilities, 500,000. Professional and business services, 1 million people. Education and health services, 1.1 million people. Leisure and hospitality, 1.5 million people. Other services, 400,000. Government workers, 800,000. And self-employed workers are still 650,000 below what they were. So, again, mischaracterization, kind of like Xi, when he was giving his speech, he referred to the Chinese as a moderately prosperous people, but said that there's a lot of work to go, and that would have been an accurate characterization of our unemployment rate. But as I already read, that didn't happen. The stock market went up because, is the way that we made that sound. And it did. A couple of weeks ago, I was on the program and I was saying, expressing my skepticism, and I said the only way the market's going to make new highs, because I read the statistics on it, and I said the only way that it makes new highs is if it goes up every day, every week, every month, and it has. A new all-time high every day. All right, so if you look at it, what was it? It was between June 24th, which was a couple of weeks ago, and July 2nd, which was this last Friday. All right, it went up every day to a new all-time high, and June 24th to July 2nd is inclusive. So that makes 7 trading days in a row. All right, whereas all-time high after all-time high after all-time high. And that's the last time that happened was in the dot-com bubble in the fourth quarter of 1997. But anyway, it's on just on a tear over 2 weeks. Last week I said real simple, every stock went up. This week, for the weekend of July 2nd, which was last Friday, thing was up 1.67%. So if you have a $100,000 portfolio, you're looking at $1,675. So it went up again. If you're looking for a reason for why it went up, same deal. Every stock was up. If you look at, there's 54 stocks that we track in between all our portfolios. 6 of them were up more than 4%. I'm going to read that list. NVIDIA, which is up another 7.65% this week. All right, that means since April 9th, when we put these portfolios together, that stock has risen 42.27% since April 9th. It's what you call a meme stock. It's up because of more buyers and sellers, retail participation, jabbering about it on social media, that kind of thing. I'm not going to tell you they're a bad company, but it was not 50% undervalued on April 9th. But anyway, it's way in the bejesus up. Home Depot gained 6.26%, and that almost recovers from the CEO talking the stock down, as I covered in prior episodes. Apple was up 5.15%. Microsoft was up 4.77%, the number 1 and 2 stocks by capitalization in the index. Abbott Labs was up 4.72%, and Thermo Fisher Scientific was up 4.15%. And those are the 6 stocks that were above 4%. This is 54 stocks. Another 6 stocks were up in between 3 and 4%. Not going to read them. Another 9 stocks were up in between 2 and 3%. Another 12 stocks were up in between 1 and 2%. Another 12 stocks after that were up in between 0 and 1%. And on the downside, there were 4 stocks that fell less than 1%, 3 stocks that fell less than 1 and 2%, and only 2 stocks out of all 54, which contains the 33 or 35 largest companies in the index, which make up almost 60% of the value. Of that entire list, only 2 stocks were down. I'll read those. More than 2%. They were down more than 2%. ExxonMobil, price of oil fell. So price of Exxon fell. But they were down 2.3%. And Boeing, who cannot seem to get a plane in the air, fell 4.71%, and that's it. Everybody else was either flat or up. As to our portfolios, I already said if you track the index, you gain $1,675. The large liquid leaders, or not the large liquid leaders, Jesus, the top 30 cap weight, which is the proxy for the index. It takes the top 30 stocks, weights them by capitalization, just like they are in the index. And it's a proxy for the largest stocks in the S&P 500, which comprise more than 50% of value. That one went up 2.72% instead of only 1.67. So it returned $2,800 instead of the $1,675. Top 30 equal weight, which is the same 30 stocks, only they are equal weighted instead of capitalization weighted, almost identical, $2,089 instead of $2,806. So, the stocks performed. If you look at the particulars in the top 30 cap weight, it had 7 losers. Apple, because this is cap weighted, right? Apple, number 1 company in the world, was the largest gainer. Microsoft, number 2 company in the world, was the second largest gainer. Amazon, 3rd largest company in the world, was the number 3 largest gainer. So you may as well have just written down your top stocks by capitalization, and that was it. The 7 losers, 7 winners over $100 were Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Nvidia snuck in there, meme stock, but then Facebook, Google, then Home Depot snuck in there. But Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Google is by rank order. Virtually. I think Facebook and Amazon might be flipped. Maybe not. I don't know. But it's by rank order, the top 5 largest stocks. When you go to the equal weight, NVIDIA is the largest winner because you didn't weight things by capitalization. Home Depot came in second. Apple came in third. Microsoft came in fourth. Then Nike, again, on their shift to China. That one had 11 winners for $1,760. And the other one was $2,355 on the top 7 winners. And neither portfolio had a loser above $100. Not one. Largest loss was in the top 30 by cap weight. The largest loss was Exxon at $40. in the top 30 equal weight, the largest loss was Exxon at $90. That's the difference in between cap weight. But every stock was up. Anyway, if you go to the top 3 by sector, which is where to get rid of sector concentration in between the large cap stocks, we 11 sectors in the S&P, top 3 stocks per sector, 33 stocks. That one only rose $1,278. So it underperformed a little bit. It only went up 1.24%. If you look at the list there, they only had one loser, Boeing, for $140. 7 winners above $100, Home Depot, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, Abbott Labs, Amazon, UPS, and UPS, that's it, above $100. But the stocks in the middle, the 15 to 20 stocks in the middle just didn't do much. Up $35, up $32, up $28. So their top end performed well. Nobody on the bottom end. And so if your portfolio was weighted towards the top end, like our top 30 capitalization weight, you by far did the best. People in the middle are hating it. People at the what they call the microcaps, Russell 3000 and stuff, that index is falling like a stone last couple of weeks while the majors soar here. And the large liquid leaders, we started with 24 stocks, sold 20, so we're not playing with a full deck here. We were up 1.92% compared to 1.67% on the stocks because we had fewer of them. But because we only have 20 instead of the 24 and we're holding cash, we only gained in absolute numbers $664. But of that $664, I spent $600 roughly on the cost of current hedges, and then I rewrote the others, the ones that were going to expire on July 16th, which is next Friday. I rewrote those longer out, October, December, a couple of Novembers, and a couple of January 2022. So I put them further out, and that cost me another $600. So in sum, we gained $1,700 and spent, call it $1,000 on managing these hedges. But unlike all these other portfolios that are soaring, we have downside protection. They do not. It should become cheaper after this because I recognized the greatest deal of the expense this last week. In looking it over, I'm very close to selling 2 or 3 other issues that are up 20%. Or thereabouts, in between 15 and 20% since April 9th. I'm this far away from thinking that's good enough. And just take more money out. I don't know. I might do that sometime this week, depending on how it goes. And that's about it. Email with questions, comments, suggestions. The email for that is paul@stockbetter.com. Paul@stockbetter, BETTOR.com. Thank you for joining. Join us next Tuesday. Name of the show is The Bogdanich Perspective, TalkCast PDX, splattered all over the web here and there. And WJNia, which means goodbye.